Everybody, it's Dick here. Today I'm looking at the Husqvarna Svartpilen in black. It is in the name. It is a 373cc, 43 horsepower liquid-cooled engine. It's a striking bike, but part of me thinks that this is the next logical step to giving motorcycle designers access to computer-aided design. Those irreverent shapes protruding off of the tank is actually the result of what a first-year design student would create when they first discover the extrude tool. It's a web-designed version of a motorcycle. It's a motorcycle that makes me wonder if the designer has ever ridden a motorcycle. I'd be damned if I get my wife Fanny on the back of that seat. It's a very sterile-looking motorcycle, almost as if no human hands were involved in its construction. The tank rack seems unnecessary, and it hides the winged tank. And although it's claiming practicality, I think it has more to do with design than anything else. The matte black handlebars with the motocross-style unnecessary bar across front looks cool, I have to admit. The display is striking, and I'm seduced by it, and I'm hoping that it is as practical as it is well designed. The controls I recognize from the Duke 390, but they don't look as budget on this bike as they did on the Duke. It has inverted forks and spoke tires, a shortened seat. It ticks all the design boxes, and I'm looking forward to riding it. Svartpilen, 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 Svartpilen. I'm on the new Husqvarna Svartpilen 401, mostly out of curiosity. It's a very interesting bike. On paper it shares the engine, the chassis, transmission, brakes, componentry of the Duke 390. The body styling is different, the instruments are different, mirrors, headlamp, indicators are the same, interestingly enough. However, I'll say this bike feels completely different to the 390. It's more attractive than the 390, and I think it's tuned more aggressively than the 390, but not necessarily for the better. It seems a bit more idiosyncratic, kind of grunty and a bit angry. It revs higher. I think red line on the 390 is 10,000 RPMs. This goes up to 13,000 RPMs. There's a little red light that blinks when you're pushing the engine too hard and they want you to shift. And that happens, interestingly enough, around 9,000 RPMs. So saying it red lines at 13,000 RPMs probably is not accurate. It's probably closer to the 10,000 RPMs of the 390. Seat height is high for a bike this small. You're kind of on the balls of your feet, maybe the tiptoes a little bit for some people, a little shorter than me. Ooh, wow, it really dips, huh? You're resting really heavily on your wrists. You're more pitched forward than you get the sense of by looking at it or even sitting on it stopped. Riding on it, you're really kind of in a very sporty position. The gears are shorter on this than I expected. I'm in 4th and going 40. I mean, I'm in 5th now. You kind of feel like you want to shift early on this, even though it says it has all those RPMs. Yeah, I'm really heavy on my wrists. The seat's kind of comfortable. It's relatively flat, kind of cafe racer seat. There's a little bit of a bump that I'm kind of resting on, but it's relatively flat. It's hard too. It's a hard seat, but you know, Husqvarna are kind of known for their hard seats. It's a pretty radical design compared to other bikes in this kind of cafe racer, heritage racer, new heritage class. But not so radical that I don't think it'll do well. And certainly not radical compared to like the Duke. I mean, if you look at the Duke compared to other naked offerings, the Duke looks radical. This is kind of like the Duke version of a cafe racer. And if you look at it through that lens, it's not all that radical. It's good looking though. There's nowhere to hang any bags or anything. This is the kind of bike you're gonna have a stupid messenger satchel thrown over your bag so that when you crash you hang yourself. There is this kind of tank bag rack that's installed here, but I don't know how effective that would be. And plus it would just hide all the beautiful design of it. I do like the LED round headlight. I do like the round display. I'm more attracted to this bike than the 390, but already, what the f***, I'm in 6th gear. Why am I in 6th gear? I was going 40 miles an hour and I was in 6th gear because I wasn't looking at my gear selector. I was listening to the bike and the bike's like shift, shift, please shift, please shift, please shift, and then I'm in 6th gear going 40. So the tuning, although they made the tuning to be or to feel more muscly than the 390, they've really narrowed the length on these gears. Same suspension, but it feels harder on this bike, maybe because I'm on my wrists more. You know, I'd hate for this ride to be just a comparison with the 390, but I've ridden it just before this bike, so it's hard to get away from it. Plus, it is the 390 with some changes. But looking at it by itself, really beautifully designed. Just about $6,000, maybe 5,500 pounds for the 401, which I think is a little pricey for a 400 or a 390cc bike. It's so funny how the tuning of a bike just changes its nature, how just a little slight change. It's definitely gruntier. It feels, it actually shakes back and forth laterally. I'm in 6th gear. Why am I in 6th gear going 30? What the hell? It feels a little bit like a BMW R9T, even though this is a 401. It kind of has a lateral vibration to it. I'm feeling it going side to side, and when you rev it, it kind of feels like it's going side to side. I wonder, the KTM guy was saying that they changed the balancer on this engine from the 390, and maybe that's how the change in the character is, but I'm in 6th gear again. What? Come on. Let's see what happens if I rev it out. Yeah, it says 13,000 RPMs, but it's like, please shift me at 3,000 RPMs. Well, that's weird. I mean, the nice thing about being disappointed about a motorcycle is that you can tick it off your list of things that you want to buy. There's a consolation there. But why do they have to be the bikes that you have such high expectations for? The bikes that I'm really looking forward... I was surprised that this bike was available to ride, and really quite happy that I'd get a go on it. And you know, there'll be people who comment on this video like they did on the 310 video that says, oh, you just don't know how to ride a low displacement bike, or you don't know what low displacement bikes are all about. No! That's not it. That's not it. I know what I want from a low displacement bike. I own low displacement bikes. My favorite of my entire fleet of bikes is a 400cc bike. This is where I want to live. That's not bad. 7,000 RPMs though, and really buzzy. I'm resisting the urge to shift. It's really buzzy. It's telling me it wants to shift, but I'm not gonna do it. Lots of buzz in the hands, lots of buzz in my ass, lots of buzz on my feet, but it's performing now. It's performing like the 390 performed a gear lower without any of the vibrations. Oh, and interesting enough, the throttle response is different. I like the bikes where you can roll off the throttle and the engine starts braking you. You don't have this kind of, you're not just sitting at speed and kind of petering out. You kind of have that throttle response. There it is. You gotta really rev this thing to get it to do what you want, and it's more work than its little brother. This is about 1,000 pounds more expensive than the 390 as well. So you're paying for a rougher ride, lower performance. Now we're getting it. No, I'm not gonna shift you. Shut up. I'm waiting for that red light to start blinking. There we go. There's the red light. 7,000 RPMs, the red light blinks. 7,000 RPMs. You 13,000 RPMs. What a lie. That's just disappointing. Redline, it's getting upset at 7,000 RPMs and it blinks that little red light to shift. Maybe 7,200 RPMs. But that's where it wants to be to perform. It has to be at 7,000 RPM. I'm in 6th gear. Come on. Come on. Why did you detune this thing? To make it sound gruntier. What, because no one's gonna ride a 400. No one's gonna ride a 400 at highway speeds. They will if you build it. That 390 will ride at highway speeds. That 390 will go 90 miles an hour, easy. And it has an effective 6th gear. This thing, I'm in 6th gear. I have to cruise in 6th gear. It wants to be at 6,500 to 7,500 RPMs. It's vibey as shit, but that's where the performance is. And if you're gonna say you gotta run those single cylinders high RPMs to get the performance, fine. I'll ignore what the engine's telling me, that it wants to shift, but don't blink a red light for me to shift and not have any gears to shift to. The nice sound that the 390 had, this thing sounds like it's working too hard. Not just fire. All right, well, the argument could be that they designed this to be a city bike. And as a city bike, you're not getting up to speeds you don't want it to perform. You're riding to the cafe, or you're riding to, you know, the London motorcycle destinations, and everyone's oohing and aahing and asking how it rides. And you say, oh, grunty, it's a Husqvarna. No, it's a fucking KTM that's been fucked. Blink your red light at me. Yep, red light. 3rd gear, 45 miles an hour, red light was blinking. What the hell? So yeah, this thing will run great at high RPMs until you blow up the engine. I just love when marketing agencies or marketing executives get involved in motorcycling. It's a cross between an IKEA living room and a motorcycle. But we're gonna ruin the motorcycle that you're building the IKEA living room around. Nope. Nope. Red light already. I shifted from one gear to the other and the red light didn't stop blinking. It just stayed blinking. Red light. Stupid. 27 miles an hour, 1st gear was done. Red light was blinking. I feel like I want to shift. I'm not gonna do it. 6,000 RPMs, it feels like it's running at 10,000 RPMs. It's really vibey. 6,500 RPMs, really vibey, really high. I don't know if you hear that engine spinning. No wonder the red light blinks at 7,000 RPMs. Still, I mean, even before 5,500, 6,000 RPMs, you feel like you want to shift. And the gearing is so short. It's fun in the corners if you weren't worried about blowing your engine up. Took a little break. I've been back on it for about 5 minutes and my hands are already falling asleep. Really vibey. I don't get it. It's just, I guess there's just such a fine line between the right tuning. And they've crossed the line on this one. A little squeak in the brakes, but the brakes are alright. I do like the KTM ABS. I've decided to not look down at the display because I was looking down at the display to have the bike tell me how to ride it, but it was counterintuitive to how the engine was telling me to ride it. I think the people who are buying this bike as a showpiece, as a cafe bike, as a city bike, I think any of the performance issues that I'm experiencing won't be an issue for them because really at low speeds it sounds throaty, it sounds powerful, and it's a good looking bike. And the longer I'm on it, and at these low speeds kind of just cruising through town, the more forgiving I am of it. But that shouldn't be the case. I shouldn't have to forgive it, especially knowing that the 390 is the same bike, that it could perform. It just doesn't sound like this bike. It doesn't sound mean. So firing it up at, you know, the cafe, yeah, you hear that. It sounds gruntier than the other single. The other single had a great sound, but it doesn't sound like, you know, Cafe Racer. And I think they've sacrificed the performance that they definitely have in this configuration for style and sound. And that sucks because they could have it all. No, not they, we could have it all. But they're depriving us. They're depriving us of it. And what's worse is I know it's there. I know it could exist. Leaning on my wrists, on my sleeping hands in front of these mirrors. It's just so stupid. At least you'll be able to filter on your cafe bike. Freaking red light. I'm looking at that stupid red light, waiting for it to tell me off. Red light. Red. One gear to the next gear to the next gear, all on the red light. No! No! I will not listen to you! Well, this bike can perform if it would let you. Alright, another disappointing motorcycle. And a short ride. Ignore the red light. I know the brakes are good. You know what's interesting? It seems like these are the same brakes on the 310 GS. They're the Braebury Brembo the Indian Brembo offshoot. But I think the ABS system on this is better because the brakes work so much better than the 310 GS. Clamped on the brakes, there was no nosedive, which has a lot to do with the suspension, I know, but it also has a lot to do with that ABS system. I'm in 5th gear at 30, come on! This is one of those bikes like my F700 where the gear selector is required because if you don't have it on there, you're gonna up the bike. But I mean, this little red light and this gear selector is just completely counter to what the bike needs to do to perform. Red light. I wonder how many blown up engines they had before they put that stupid red light on it. So if you're looking for an Indian-made low-displacement bike, I think what you do is you buy the Duke 390. Yeah, I don't know. You want the Duke 390 that looks like the Husqvarna, or at least has the display. Actually, you know what? I could live with the Duke styling because of how well it performs. I'm in 6th gear. This is the most comfortable I've been on this bike. I'm going 50 miles an hour at 5,000 RPMs in 6th gear. What have they done? And my hands are asleep. You can tell it's the 390 chassis though, because you can just dive it into curves. The other thing that's weird is the way you're leaning forward on this bike, you're actually sitting in front of the side view mirrors, so you have to kind of sit back. You have to push back and up to see anything in the side view mirrors. And the side view mirrors are vibey. Still outperforms the GS though. That's interesting. I dropped 500 RPMs just rolling off the accelerator, and in 6th gear it started rattling. It started protesting that I was in the wrong gear. What do you want from me? And now I'm going 4,000 RPMs at 39 miles an hour. I'm in 5th gear. That's just wrong. That's a shame. My balls are asleep. Bzz. If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.